Hello everybody, today we're going to be doing a video over the altered square. So I do have another video on it, but it only talks about conjoining two strings to each other instead of conjoining all three of them to each other. So our end goal for this assignment, or this part of the assignment I should say, is to create a net. So when we're looking at this net, this is going to be the thing that actually holds our pinch pots. Move this to the side so you can see it a little bit better. Holds our pinch pots. So if I were to take my finished pinch pot and then slip it into the alternating square knots that I made, it should be able to hold it up without me holding and supporting it. This one is a little loose because it was not made for this pinch pot. Usually you're going to want to pair your pinch pot to your specific ones that you, or to your specific alternating square width. So for our alternating square, we are going to start off by going and grabbing two strings from the first sonnet and putting them with two strings of the sonnet next to it. Then about at the width of our pinch pot, so like let's say my pinch pot is like a really wide one, I could use like a little bit further down. I'm going to do a square knot, just like we've done in the past. Okay, so there's the first step. Instead of pulling up tight to the top, I want to keep some width. And if last time I started with my right, this time I'll start with my left. Over, under, and through the loop. And pull straight. Okay, so that's one alternating square knot. Now the next one that I'm going to do, I'm going to take two from this one and two from the one right next to it. And I'm going to do under two over the last one. And then for the last one, I'm going to go through the loop. Okay. Same thing. Alternating this time which one I'm starting with. So now I have two knots. Now before I go any further, I want to talk about making sure that you have them even. So we do want our knots to be in the same places on both sides. So I am tightening it and loosening it to make sure that when they are lined up, they are right next to each other. All right, now I have these two strings that don't have anything on them. So in order to create that net, I'm going to need to bring these together. Now when I bring them together, I want my shortest of the two strings on the inside and my longest of the two strings on the outside. And then I'm going to go under two, over one, and through the loop, just like all my other square knots. Making sure to also, again, keep these in the same point as the ones behind it. Then I'm going to slightly switch what I was doing. This time I'll start with the other side. And then pulling tight to make sure that they are in line with the other knots. All right, now I have the first part of my net. I connected, again, two strings from each sonnet to the other sonnet with a square knot, making sure they're all in a line, which they are. Now I'm going to go back and I'm going to take the two original strings with the two original strings of the same sonnet and make my last grouping of knots. So it's okay if these are a little bit tighter too, so that the knot starts to close up at the bottom. So just to clarify, I have one sonnet that started off all in gray. I have another sonnet that started off all in white. I have another sonnet that started off all in green. For this second set of knots, for the alternating square knots, I'm going to take my original gray strings and put them back together with their original gray strings. And then same thing for my white strings to my white strings and my green strings to my green strings. This is going to give your net another level so that way for the pinch pots to have a little bit more depth, there's a little bit more to hold on to it. So bringing those two together. So that's bringing them back from one sennit to the other. Make this slightly larger so you can see more of it, featuring my lunch from today. Okay, so we've got this sennit that came down and it was conjoined with the two strings from its other side, and these two strings were conjoined from two strings from the far side, and then we brought them back together at the end. I'm now going to do the same thing with my last two. You'll notice in this situation, the green string that was the supporting string is no longer next to the other green string. That's okay. I'm still going to grab both and make my last little square knot to rejoin these green strings with each other. Okay, last step is to do the white. So I'm going to rejoin my white strings together. Okay, and now I've finished my alternating squares. Now, when I go to put my pinch pot inside of my macrame project, it should hold it tight and snug. The final step is to do a gathering knot. That gathering knot will happen at the bottom of the macrame. Using this bigger string, it is a little bit difficult to see what we're doing, so I'm going to walk through how to do that step as well. You are able to change this square knot to any other knot that requires 2 to 4 strings. So for example, you could also do an alternating Josephine, or perhaps you wanted to do any other kind of thing that's going to require a knot with 2 to 4 strings. You could do that as long as you're alternating from one sennit to the other. I'm going to get my string now for my gathering knot. Okay, so my gathering knot string is going to be pink, just for clarity so you can see the difference of what is going on with all of the other ones down here. So I'm going to move my thing down. I do think that this is helpful if you put your pinch pot inside of it or something similarly sized to your pinch pot. Usually a water bottle will do just fine. When we go to do our gathering knot, we want to make sure that that knot is happening in the center. So I like to have that 3D object to figure out where the center is, or just make sure it's hanging down instead of laying on a table like mine is right now. Then I'm going to pinch the macrame with all of the strings inside using my non-dominant hand. Then I will take the string that I'm using to create my gathering knot and pinch it with my non-dominant thumb. Also noticing that I'm keeping that extra part of the string above clear and visible. Following this, I will use the tail of that string to create a loop by simply pinching with the same thumb. Then I will use this macrame string to wrap around the top of the loop I created a minimum of how many times? You know the answer. 3 times. So that's 1, 2, 3. And you're welcome to do more than that, but 3 is what is required in order to hold the knot nice and tight. You may have noticed when I did that, I shifted my hands a little bit so I could hold on to the top part of the string. That seems to come in handy for most people, especially with this bigger string. Now that I can see a little bit more of what I'm doing, I've opened up my grip from this to this. I'm going to put my string through the loop. Okay, the only step left is to tighten this bad boy up by pulling that top tail that we left at the beginning and securing it all the way under. If you don't loosen your grip as you go, you'll get loose ends too. So make sure you are checking for that as you go. And this should secure all the way under the top there. Once you're done with this, you can cut your loose ends and you're done with your project. Make sure to submit on Canvas.